Welcome to The Impact Effect, hosted by conscious leadership expert Tom Eddington, advisor to some of the world's most successful companies and CEOs, where each week we help executives, entrepreneurs, and organizers become more effective leaders while growing businesses that are making an impact in the world. And now, here's Tom.
Hi, welcome to the Impact Effect Network, a place where we discuss making business matter through conscious leadership. I'm Tom Eddington. My guest today is Bob Chapman, CEO of Barry-Wehmiller. Welcome, Bob.
It's good to be here. Thanks, Tom.
Well, I'd love to start our conversation by, if you could just share with our listeners a bit about your history and the leadership role you've had with your organization.
Well, I think it's relative to your audience that I got a degree in accounting from Indiana. I got an MBA, went into public accounting, and I was taught very much traditional management practices. And when I got out into the real world through public accounting and then joining our family company in 1969, I experienced the world that I was trained to, which is technical competence in creating shareholder value, profits as measured by profits. Very traditional challenges in business, very traditional practices, downsizing, right-sizing, doing acquisitions. And it was only about now 14 years ago that I became aware of what I call truly human leadership. Through a series of transformations, I began focusing on the people I had the privilege of leading. And so my journey has been kind of a half of my career, kind of in traditional practices of creating profits and shareholder value. In the second half of my career, trying to create human value in harmony with economic value.
I've had very much a similar career in that I was a partner in a management consulting firm for a number of years and then had a health crisis that was my wake-up call. And that led me on the journey I'm on now and have been for the last dozen years or so around bringing more conscious leadership into the world. So I'd love to explore that more with you in terms of what does that look like operationally? What does that look like from a leadership perspective and from an organization culture perspective to be bringing that work into your organization and into the broader world?
You know, I always say that in my education, very traditional, I call it good education at Indiana and Michigan. It was all about management practices. So I took management classes, got a management degree, and eventually got a job in management. So I tried to do was manage, and it was around, success, which we define as money, power, and position. And I viewed people, even though I think I was always a nice guy, I viewed people as objects for my success. And as I reflect upon my education and my journey, I was never taught to inspire people or care for people. And today I would say to you, in that journey, I realized that, there's an expression, you need to get the right people on the bus. I would say to you, I would say it differently. I think we need to build a safe bus, which is a business model, which takes skills to do. And then we need drivers who know how to drive that bus safely to the right destination. And then anybody gets on the bus is going to be fine. So I consider the position of leadership a privilege to create value, human value and economic value in harmony, so people can return home each night feeling valued for who they are and what they do, and treat their family members with the same respect they've been treated. Because I was never taught in my education that the way I would treat people at work would affect the way they would go home and treat their family. And I was never taught that the impact of my leadership would be more significant on their health than their family doctor learned. We now call my talk the privilege of leadership and the skills and the courage to care. Because the way we lead affects the way people live. And that I was never taught that, never read that. It's the revelation that our transformation has given us that is so profound in today's economy when we have so much. Remember the thing that I want your listeners to think about. We have the lowest unemployment in 50 years. Almost anybody can find a job, or almost anybody can improve their income or their job, because there's more demand for jobs than there are people to fill those jobs. And we're at peace in the world. We're not sending our young men and women off to battle in foreign countries right now. So in theory, our government's goal of giving us peace and prosperity, where we can prosper, we can share our gifts, be compensated, provide for our families. But we have one of the highest levels of anxiety we've ever had in this country.
Yep.
And I believe through my journey and the exposure I have to all facets of our society now for speaking, that there's a great deal of pain in our country because people don't feel valued, they feel used.
Yep.
And that is what leadership is about, is the stewardship of the lives of the people entrusted to you, to send them home each night feeling that who they are and what they do matters. So that's kind of the journey we've been on. And again, I get the privilege of speaking in the military and education, healthcare, business, government, and the pain people are feeling is in all parts of our society right now. And so my hope is, my belief is that business could be the most powerful force for good in the world if we simply cared about the people we had the privilege of leading.
Yeah. I mean, what you didn't say it explicitly, but I heard in what you just shared about the responsibility leaders have.
Yeah, again, I would have to say, I've been in business for 50 years. And I would say the attitude is, look, if we gave people a job, we gave them a salary, they ought to be happy. Okay. And in fact, we have, again, in my business education, I was never taught to care about the people I'd have the privilege of leading. And I was never taught to inspire them. I was taught to use them for my success. I define the word management as the manipulation of others for my success. And leadership is the stewardship of the lives you have the privilege of leading.
Yep.
Well, it's a profound responsibility. But we don't teach that because we teach technical skills, not human skills. Well, again, if you think about the Industrial Revolution and the way in which it created economic prosperity in this country, and people came off farms with more predictable incomes and jobs, and towns were built around these factories. But it was always about economic value. And we thought because we gave people compensation, better benefits, vacations, that we were creating a sense of happiness. But in fact, it was never about human dignity. It was about economic gain. And when were the unions formed? To protect workers against management.
Yep.
In the very heart of the Industrial Revolution, because we made so much money as we grew and exported around the world. It was never about human value creation. And what we need, Tom, is we need a human revolution in harmony with the Industrial Revolution, because I believe without question you can create human value and economic value in harmony. They are not in conflict, and you don't have to justify caring for people. You have to justify not caring for people.
Right. Well, I firmly agree with you. And, when I think about being in graduate school and what I was taught, and whether it's Jim Collins' great book that you referenced earlier about being on the bus, so much of what's written and so much of what is taught is because there's not the awareness that you have. And I'm really encouraged that you've written the book you've written, and that you're sharing what you're doing within your organization, because it's information, it's wisdom that's desperately needed in the world today.
Yeah, Tom, I get a chance to talk all over the country now, and we actually working with people at McKinsey, Harvard. Last I checked, just recently, all Harvard MBA students study our culture in their MBA program. And there is a growing awareness in this country. And recently, I think you saw it, the CEO Roundtable came out with a global statement that said, we need to shift from our singular focus on shareholder value to other attributes in the way we touch people's lives. Very strong statement. And and why did they come out with it? Because there's a lot of discussion in this country about socialism and, if you will, evils of capitalism. And I think the leaders of the capitalistic part of our society needed to come out with a statement that there's a lot of ways in which businesses impact us other than just shareholder value. I always say you obviously need to have an economic model that is sustainable and robust so that people in your span of care can have a good future. But you also have to have human value creation, which people want to know that who they are and what they do matters. There's a premise that I find throughout. Look, he gets a salary, he ought to be happy, okay? As opposed to they get meaning and purpose. People are desperately in need of meaning and purpose. And we send them home kind of used and empty, and they're not the best fathers, husbands, spouses, brothers, community members. There's a lot of frustration in the world. And again, we operate all over the world. This is a universal truth. And it's not just in business. It's in healthcare, education, government, every facet of society. People don't feel valued. And when people don't feel valued, they are not as good to other people as they need to be. So like you, I believe business could be a powerful force for good in the world if we simply cared about the people we had the privilege of leading.
Yeah, and I'd like to explore that with you a bit. So my observations are that business is running the agenda of the world now. No longer is it nation states, governments. Yes, they still have a role. Yes, they still have control over some dimensions of what's happening, but the real agenda of the world is being driven by business. And I too was encouraged by the proclamation in August by the roundtable of shifting from shareholder to stakeholder. And I'd like to explore that with you because my sense is they've opened a Pandora's box. They don't really fully appreciate what they've done. It's not that running a business is easy, but running a business when you're only focused on one stakeholder is easy compared to running it based on all of the stakeholders. And I'd love to hear what metrics are you using? How are you running your organization when you're thinking about your people, you're thinking about your customers, your suppliers, the communities you're in, the shareholders, et cetera? How do you manage that? And what metrics do you use? And what's changed?
Tom, the revelation that the CEO Roundtable had, remember it came to light in the environment of the 2020 national presidential election.
Yep.
Some of the dialogue relative to socialism, right? There's some people who are running for president who believe that business has been a source of evil.
Yep.
And I believe that these CEOs, and I know several of them, very fine people, I believe they realize that the free enterprise system which they are the leaders in because they're 200 of the top corporations, that they needed to make a positive statement to, if you will, counter the greed that is perceived to be about shareholders, share price focus. I honestly am not sure how they will do what they say they're going to. We're working with a couple of them in terms of truly human leadership, and they value it. But so much of our focus in our society is about wealth creation, not human value creation. And so shifting from hitting that quarterly number to looking at the impact you make on stakeholders is quite a shift and is going to be quite a challenge for each of those businesses because they have analysts who are covering them.
Yep.
The minute they don't see kind of the appreciation in EBITDA or pre-tax profits or revenue growth, they'll be hurt. I mean, I think I heard the average CEOs are only in for 2.5 years.
Yep.
Because so many pension funds and private wealth management firms are based on share price growth. And, I'll tell you a story about that because I think it amplifies this point. A gentleman heard me give my speech a few years ago, and he flew out to have dinner with me. And we sat down, this very fine gentleman. And I said, what are you really proud of in your life? And he said, well, I'm known for my major gift to my university. But what I really feel good about is my minority student athletic scholarship program. And I said, well, that's wonderful. How many minority students are you able to help each year? And he said 5 or 6. I said, that's really wonderful. How many people work for your And he said 100,000. I said, so you tell me you're proud of 5 or 6 students you can help with athletic scholarships, and you don't care about the 100,000 people that make that possible for you to do that? And this really fine gentleman just looked at me and said, I never thought about it. and so we have a society where somebody writes a check to a major charity, and we say, what a wonderful family.
Yep.
What a distinguished, and we'll have a banquet and celebrate their gift to our charity. And a gentleman came out to the Aspen Institute a few years ago, and he said, while we do good in the world, could we do less harm?
Yep.
And people said, what do you mean? And he said, look, it's wonderful that people write checks to many good charities, but how did they get their money?
Yep.
People didn't like that question. So I just think what we need is a shift in thinking, which the CEO Roundtable implied. It's not easy to do, but at least they went on record implying it, that we need to create human value, human dignity, because right now I think our world is, there's a gentleman we worked with, Bill Urey at Harvard, who said we need to move from a me-centric world to a we-centric world where we think of others. And I think that is what we need. And therefore, in our business schools and our business organizations, how do we send people home each night? How do we send them home to their spouses, to their families, to their communities? Feeling valued or feeling used? Remember, 88% of all people in this country feel they work for an organization that does not care about them. And 3 out of 4 people are disengaged in what they're doing. And when we talk about the healthcare crisis, I always tell CEOs, you are the problem, because 75% of all illnesses are chronic. The biggest cause of chronic illness is stress, and the biggest cause of stress is work.
Yep.
So we're kind of self-destructing as a society in the interest of economic gain. And I think, through our Leadership Institute, where we go out and help companies learn to care, I believe we're treating cancer, but I think the cure for cancer is in our business schools and our educational schools. We need to teach people how to care for the people they have the privilege of leading. And that will profoundly change the world, as you and I desperately want to do in the time we have left on this earth, is to leave it in a world where people think of others first, people feel cared for, not used for economic gain.
So how do you actually measure that? What do you focus on in your organization?
Well, first of all, we made a decision when we realized we needed to move from management to leadership. I knew I couldn't send our people back to any graduate school to get that. So we had to create our own university to teach people how to be leaders, not managers.
Yep.
The interesting thing is that the first thing our team said, we have to teach people to listen. And I was really quite astounded, because I said, why do we need to teach adults to listen? But our team implemented a program to teach our managers who wanted to become leaders how to listen with empathy, because what we've learned is the greatest act of leadership is to listen to somebody with empathy. It's the greatest act of caring. I thought when you cared for somebody, you wanted to talk to them. So we began teaching. We taught recognition and celebration. How do you send people home each night knowing that who they are and what they do matters? And so we recognize and celebrate the goodness in people, which drowns out some of the brokenness which we typically focus on. And then we have, and this is the answer to your question, we have what I call listening session. When I travel around the world to our operations, I sit down and I get a group of people from the plant, the office, from engineering, from production, and I sit down and say, this is what we believe in. How are we doing? Okay, and then probably the biggest validation is people come in from all over the world to visit our company, visit our culture, and they universally say, I've never seen anything like this. We had Amy Cuddy, the number 2 TED Talk in the world, come to our plants. And she sat down with Simon Sinek, who invited her, and she said, walking through your plants, I've never cried so much and hugged so many people as they wanted to tell me how it feels to be cared for. She said, this is as close. She said, I thought places like this only existed in my head. This is as close to utopia as I've ever seen. Simon Sinek said, after his visit, I'm no longer a nutty idealist. I have just seen what I dreamed of. I dream of a world where you could tap anybody on the shoulder in any town and say, do you like your job? And they say, no, I don't like my job. I love my job. So our goal is to see that business is a source of tremendous human wealth in addition to economic wealth. And if we can keep those in balance, if we can see our responsibility, Simon Sinek has a great expression you'll like. In the military, we honor those who give of themselves in service of others. And in business, we give people bonuses who sacrifice others in service of themselves. Why can't we teach leaders of organizations that their primary responsibility is the well-being of the people they have the privilege of leading? That is what I believe we need to teach, and we need to give people the skills to bring together economic value creation and human value creation in harmony, not in disharmony. You don't have to give up value creation to have human value creation. Yep. They are actually in harmony, and that's what we're trying to prove and stand for. So we teach our leaders how to care, which is when you go from a manager, which again manipulates others for his success, to a leader who sees his primary responsibility as the men and women that have the privilege of leading. And it is a skill that you can teach, and it makes a profound impact. People don't tell us they come and run a better accounting department. They tell us how their marriage improves and their relationship with the children.
You're watching the Impact Effect Network. Who you are is how you lead. Conscious leadership is an intuitive, intentional process requiring an open heart, an open mind, and a committed desire to fully own how you show up in the world. If you're a CEO, a solopreneur, or a community leader, Tom Eddington's ebook helps you amplify your strengths, making you the best version of yourself. Download the ebook today and become a part of bringing conscious leadership to the planet.
Yeah, from my experience and the work I've done over the years, I've found that if you're taking care of your people, then the bottom line will take care of itself. And is that proving to be true for your organization, or is there friction at times or tension where you're trying to focus on the people and focus on the ensuring the business is financially successful?
Well, I always say it's not just a matter of being nice to your people, or you've got to have a robust business model, yep. Which is that safe bus. And my first half of my career was blessed with what turned out to be a very good business model, where we had balance of products, markets, and technology, and we tested that business model in 08, 09. So I really, it's a matter of both. Yep. You've got to look at your people, and you've got to have a good business model so it can be good to your people. And we say it's about people, purpose, and performance. It starts with our fundamental responsibility to the people who we invite into our organization. Treat them like you would like your child treated if your child was those people we invited. We're on a purpose that inspires them to share their gifts and apply their talents. And then we've got to create value. If we do not create value, we cannot be good to our people. Yep. In the long term. So I would say to you, it's raising the level of dialogue about awareness of the impact we make on people's lives. And again, think of the statistic. I mean, there's a 20% increase in heart attacks on Monday mornings. We have a society where we have TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. Get out of that place where I don't feel valued, don't drown my sorrow in a beer. I look forward to the day when we have TGIM. Thank goodness it's Monday. Get away from the kids, get away from the spouse, get to a place where I enjoy being. Okay? So I see the world so differently than it is today, where people have a chance to be who they're intended to be and appreciated for whatever that is in the pursuit of a common vision. And I believe the tension, the anxiety, the depression will be dramatically altered if the family unit is strengthened, because the parents feel valued, they know how to care for each other, and the children see that behavior and model it themselves and learn to take that with them. So I think it all goes back to the family unit and to our education system. That's what we got to focus on.
So a question for you. In my off-the-record conversations with many of the CEOs I've spoken with in publicly traded companies, they've said to me, I hear you, Tom, and I get it, but I can't do it because if I do some of the things that I know are right, my board will fire me, and they're going to replace me with somebody who doesn't get it, and I can't take that risk. And I'm going to hang in there, and I'm going to just incrementally try and have the impact. I'm guessing you probably have had similar conversations.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're dealing with some major global organizations who have become aware of our model and we're in dialogue with, and we're actually helping them. And I had one CEO of a major corporation said, "Bob, I love what you're telling me, but how do I handle my board?" And I said, very carefully, because they are not going to understand this. We had a legendary board member named Bob Lanigan, who was on the board of Chrysler and Mercedes, and as chairman of Owens, Illinois, a phenomenal gentleman that mentored me. And I said one day to Bob in the early part of our journey, culture journey, I said, "Bob, do you have any experience in public company boards you've been on where you actually talked about the culture of the company?" And he said, "Yes, one time we talked about executive compensation." That's as close as he could come in his memory of a public company board talking about culture. So I would say to you, and I was speaking to one major consumer products company, and a gentleman said to me after my talk, he said, "What do I do if corporate doesn't endorse this?" So he was part of a major division of a much larger company. And I said, "What do you need from corporate? Do you need a memo that says as of Monday we're going to care? Do you need a capital request for money?" Actually, what you have to do is you got to understand your organization, and you got to begin carefully so that you have a chance to validate that by treating people with respect and dignity and having a good business model, you can create value, and pretty soon they'll be coming to you and trying to figure out what you're doing. So I would say to you, you're right. Public companies are so judged by quarterly earnings, by young analysts who evaluate whether they met expectations or not. It is a tough battle, but we have to fight that battle because we're self-destructing for economic gain. And then the CEO Roundtable has said that.
Yep.
Now, their ability to do it is going to be the challenge. I believe they believe what they said. I believe they believe in the free enterprise system, but actually embracing this and finding a way to bring their board along and the analysts along and to show by caring for people that we have a better future, as long as you have a good business model, is quite a challenge for most of the CEOs, because the board meetings are just dominated by earnings expectations. Yep. and EBITDA multiples, et cetera. So it's going to be a real change, and we need society to embrace this, because right now it's the amount of tension, anxiety, depression that exists is really of concern in every facet of our economy.
Yeah, there was an interview I read earlier this year with the CEO of Aetna, and he was sharing his decision to implement a minimum $15 an hour wage for all of their workforce. And it was so that their employees could actually afford health care.
Yeah.
And he got a lot of pushback from people saying, how can you do this? This is outrageous. What are the shareholders going to say? What's the board going to say? And his response was, you get the shareholders you deserve.
Yeah, I mean, I think it takes there's a few bold people who can stand for this. So much of our society today is, I want it and I want it now.
Yep.
And it's an economic want, not a human dignity want. Because, we have a society where success is defined as money, power, and position. I think I'm incredibly encouraged by the CEO Roundtable statement. I wrote to every one of them. I posted on LinkedIn a message to all of them, and I wrote to every one of them and sent them a copy of my book. And I believe in their heart they would like to do this. Getting people to believe that you can care for people and create value for your stakeholders is a big journey. And it's not going to be easy. And how to do it is going to be very individualistic, because Every board is different. Every investor base is different. So I think it is, we desperately need to create human value in harmony with economic value. And what we need is that industrial revolution where human value is as important as economic value. And, again, our Chapman and Co. Leadership Institute, we are out helping major corporations around the world embrace this idea. So we were out probably 4 years ahead of that statement. And we've had some significant interest of, again, I speak almost every week someplace in the country about this message, and it gets an extremely strong reception. And nobody debates what the things I've just said to you. It's just so far outside people's comfort zone and kind of the DNA of what business is run by today. It's going to take some time to get. But I think their heart is in the right spot.
Yeah, one of the hopeful signs I've been noticing in the last few years, and it's something I've known for decades in the work I've done, is that we're starting to see articles and people talking about culture as a competitive advantage. And I'm seeing more organizations who are starting to look at what is their organization culture, what should it be, and will it differentiate them in terms of talent attraction and retention, and having a healthier work environment that's in alignment with why they're in business to begin with. And I'm encouraged by some of those writings.
Yeah, I think the dialogue has risen, and again, the interest is global. I'll be speaking in universities in Switzerland and Spain and Scotland after the first of the year. The appetite is significant. The ability to go from an economic focus to a balance between economic and human focus. Because again, you got to get the business model right. You can't be good to your people if you don't have a business model that is robust and designed to protect your people. Again, it's like that Safe Plus. So I believe, I agree with you. And I found a lot of interest in our message. It's just so far from where we are, where we have evolved to. And in my lifetime, in my 50 years in business, when I began in business, we were trying to do things to keep people. Business was good and everybody's trying to hire people so we get better benefits, better health care, et cetera. And then we had kind of the global competition where all of a sudden things from other countries were good quality and less money. And business has been in a spiral ever since, trying to find its footing in terms of economic value and human value and caring for people. So, mass layoffs and downsizing, right-sizing, shipping, export. So in my lifetime, I've seen a lot of that. And it's like looking, we've had the likes of major corporations now putting pressure on prices. So people feel forced to go to, I'll call it, lower cost places in the world to respond to that challenge. So I desperately feel that, again, the expression of our company, that is, we say our goal is we measure success by the way we touch the lives of people. We touch our suppliers, our bankers, our communities, our people. And when we consider things we're going to do, we need to think about the impact it makes on other people, not just our share price, not just our net income. And remember, the story, the revelation I had, and the story I tell about how at the wedding I realized that everybody that works for us is somebody's precious child who simply wants to know who they are and what they do matters. That is the thing that resonates most with people. When you look at people you have the privilege of leading as somebody's precious child that's in your care, and that you'll have a significant impact on their health and their family life, it really amplifies the degree of responsibility we have as leaders to the people we have the privilege of leading. So I do believe it's increasing, but I would also say the pressure for short-term gains is equally increasing.
You're watching the Impact Effect Network, the world's first 24-hour on-demand business and leadership video and podcast network, bringing conscious leadership to a global audience.
Well, I'm an optimist by nature. I'm hopeful, and I continue to see indicators or signs that we're making progress towards bringing that kind of mindset into business, knowing that that's where people spend most of their waking hours. I'm
Yep.
optimistic and hopeful.
I am. What makes me optimistic is the reaction I get to this message. I mean, from some of the sharpest people I have ever met in our major universities to business leaders, they love the message. It's just, how do you go from where we are to there in a responsible, thoughtful way? That CEO roundtable. So it will be interesting to see if some of those companies can take that wonderful statement and then give feedback as to how they're going to make that transition in a responsible way, because they also have people who've invested in their companies who their retirement, their education is dependent upon the savings they put in those companies. So it's a profound responsibility, and there's no easy path because we live in a very competitive world and a very dynamic world where the speed of change is significant.
Yep.
As we've seen in the retail industry, the automobile industry, tremendous change. And navigating that while being good to people and good to all your stakeholders is quite a challenge. But again, I'm an eternal optimist. I always say leaders' responsibility is to walk with your feet on the ground and your head in the clouds. Where are you going? But where are you now? And when you say where you're going, where are you going? Why do you want to go there? And when you get there, why will you have taken your people to a better place?
Yep.
That is, to me, truly human leadership. Where, again, I was interviewed by some university organizational development professors a few years ago. And after an hour and a half interview or something, they said to me, "You're the first CEO I've ever talked to that didn't talk about their product." I said, "But I've been talking about our product for the last hour and a half. It's our people. I will not go to my grave proud of the machinery we built. I will go to my grave proud of the people who built that machinery and their ability to express their gifts and create things of value for other people." So I just think we need to shift our focus more in balance with a human revolution where people's dignity is as important as the value created from them expressing their gifts. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, and I love that because you've already shared it. The ripple effect that has on their families, on the communities they live in, it goes way beyond your organization and the job they're doing.
Yeah, remember, when we teach in our university, Barry-Wehmiller University, when we teach people how to go from being a manager, which is manipulating people for your success, to a leader, which is being a steward of the people, 95% of the feedback is how it affects their marriage and their relationship with their kids. And so, again, our leadership model was significantly influenced by Cynthia and my parenting of our 6 kids. And, what is parenting? The stewardship for those precious lives that come into our families through birth, adoption, second marriage, which virtually everybody takes very seriously, a primary responsibility. What is leadership? The stewardship of those precious lives of people who walk in our buildings every day who simply want to know they matter. So a lot of the things that we evolved from going from management to leadership came from how we raise our kids to know that they matter, so they express their gifts fully. So leadership and parenting is identical. It's simply caring for the people you have the privilege of impacting their lives, whether it's in your home or at your work. And that is a society that we desperately owe to our children. At my granddaughter's graduation a couple of years ago, when everybody's applauding as these kids got the diplomas, I had tears in my eyes because I knew the world we were sending these young kids into. And I didn't feel good about it. And I feel this profound sense of responsibility to stand on the tallest mountain I can and share this message in the most profound way I can, because I think we can begin healing as a world, as opposed to kind of self-destructing for economic interests. Because I think that is a downward spiral. And yet human dignity can be created while economic value is being created, because we know that, we try to model that. So we're trying to be the company that lives by those values to show that you can create human and economic value with a good business model, a good culture, and a good focus on creating value for all stakeholders.
I'm absolutely delighted to have you on the show and to be able to help get your message out in the world. It's one that resonates with me. I would just ask, is there any one or two final thoughts you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, well, I think the way I would say what I'd like your listeners to hear is how I now end my speeches. The way we lead impacts the way people live. That's the Cliff Notes version of our message. If somebody had told me in my youth that the way I would run my business would affect people's health and would affect the way they go home and treat their spouse and their kids and operate within our communities, I would have been a far better leader at an early stage in life than when I simply focused on profits and growth and value creation. What we need to do is we need to create human value and economic value and harmony, and we're going to continue to show that you can. In fact, you can create more value when people are expressing their gifts fully. Because remember, 3 out of 4 people in this country are disengaged in what they're doing according to Gallup. So my hope is that all business leaders can embrace this profound sense of responsibility for the people they have the privilege of leading. It is a profound responsibility, an awesome responsibility, and a great joy. And I have been privileged to grow in this journey and to share this message with audiences like yours and people like you who know that there's a better way forward, that we can allow these young men and women to come in our care and express their gifts and go home at night feeling valued. Yeah, if me, an accountant, can do that with an average education, I'm sure people of your intelligence and others can do it far better than me. But I feel we've been blessed with this message from some higher power of the way we are intended to live and work together, where people feel valued and return home and treat their families as them too. So thank you for the opportunity to share the message with your group. You give me hope that in the time I have left, that this message can resonate in far enough corners in education, we can start teaching people how to do this.
You're watching the Impact Effect Network. Is your team tuned out? Are you looking for a powerful speaker to motivate and inspire your organization? Then Tom Eddington is the choice for keynote speaker at your next conference or event. Tom is one of the most sought-after business advisors and coaches in Silicon Valley. For over 2 decades, Tom has advised world-renowned CEOs and executives on how to catapult their organization's success, including Hewlett-Packard, NBNA Corporation, and Royal Dutch Shell. In his dynamic keynotes, Tom offers fresh new paradigms on how to create healthier, happier, and more purposeful workplaces while navigating change and generating higher degrees of success for organizations. For information on booking Tom at your next event, contact eddingtonadvisory.com.
And what for listeners who would like to learn more, or get in touch with you or to your organization, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Well, the first thing I would say is that on YouTube, there must be 20 or 30 of my talks, but there's an animated, my TED Talk was animated from a 21-minute talk to a 10-minute animated talk. And I would simply sit down with some of your leaders, some people that you surround yourself with in terms of stewardship of your business, and watch a 10-minute TED Talk and say, how does this resonate with you? And if people feel it does, which I think it will, you can then read the book. The book was intended to be something that is taught in business schools. It gives the journey from management to leadership, and then how to live those practices. And then finally, Chapman and Co., our leadership institute, where we are trying to find people who believe what we believe. We offer classes. You can go to Chapman and Co. Leadership Institute. We have classes that people fly in from all over the world to attend. And then you can take it from there. We do not believe this is our proprietary information. We believe we've been blessed with this, and we are more than willing to share it in any venue possible so we can begin creating a world where people feel valued. So I would say those are 3 steps: the animated TED Talk, the book, the Chapman and Co. Leadership Institute, and then decide what you stand for, what you want to believe in, and what you want to embrace. And again, we are looking for people who believe what we believe and want to join us on this journey to show that business can be a powerful force for good in the world if we simply care about the people we have the privilege of leading.
Well, thank you, Bob. It's been an absolute delight to have you on the show and to be in conversation with you. Really appreciate your time.
Seriously, when people like you give me this opportunity, I feel a profound sense of responsibility to meet your needs so that we can move forward as a society and begin healing and letting business be a powerful force for good. So thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you.
You're watching the Impact Effect Network. Thank you for joining Tom Eddington on the Impact Effect. Visit ImpactEffectNetwork.com to connect with Tom and discover additional episodes featuring today's top leaders making a global impact through conscious leadership in the world today.